Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the InduSoft iPad HMI for the car wash industry webinar. We have a special guest today, Mr. Scott Fosnot. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Scott. Correct me if I'm wrong when you get online here. In fact, why don't I bring you online? I'm going to unmute you. Scott, are you there?
I am here, and yes, you're saying it correctly.
Okay, thanks. All right, Scott, looks like we got good sound, good audio here, so I'm going to go ahead and mute you again, and I'll bring you back on when you're up. And okay, so to get started, here's some quick introductions. My name is Scott Courtier. I'm Senior Technical Sales with InduSoft, and I'm going to do a little introductory here before we hand it over to Scott. And Scott is Division Manager for Custom Control Specialist out of Ohio, and he's going to introduce himself when he comes online a little bit more. The agenda for today is I'm going to do a quick, very quick, 2-slide overview of InduSoft, and then I'm going to talk about some ideas and some concepts, best practices for implementing remote HMI, and show you what we have to offer, and then hopefully do a quick little demo. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty this morning in the morning webinar. I think we've overcome that and should be able to show you that. And then I'll hand things over to Scott, and he's going to talk about the Guardian Wash Command project, that the product that they have. So to get started, what is InduSoft? InduSoft Web Studio is the name of the product. It's easy to use HMI and SCADA software, yet as easy as it is to use, it's still a very powerful and expandable product. And it runs on any current Microsoft operating system, both 32 and 64 bits, including Windows CE and mobile, Windows embedded operating systems, including embedded XP, embedded Standard 7, and I think there's even some other newer versions of the embedded operating systems out now. Desktop versions, including XP, Vista, Windows 7, 8, 8.1, and the current server editions that are out from Microsoft. So look forward to some upcoming information about running on other operating systems besides Windows. So that should be coming out shortly here, probably by the end of the summer or so, around then. And so let's talk a little bit about the different deployment within the product. Now, very typically on a machine or maybe some type of process, you might have a local HMI that might be an industrialized panel computer running InduSoft Web Studio, or it could be a desktop or a laptop. It doesn't have to be an industrialized, but very typically on a machine or some type of control panel, and you're going to see a few examples of this idea in Scott's presentation. You might also run it on a display-less device, whether it be a PLC that runs Windows CE or an industrial computer that might be in a cabinet somewhere and you only access it remotely. It could be in a control room. Now, InduSoft Web Studio supports resolutions from 240 pixels by 240 to 10,000 by 10,000. And if you know that high-definition monitor has a resolution, a 1080p monitor, the 1080p is the vertical resolution, so that's 1920 by 1080. And if I've done the math correctly, that's 5 by 9 high-definition monitors, works out to 45 high-def monitors. Now, the biggest one I've ever seen has been 8 70-inch monitors ganged together on a big video wall, which was very impressive. We can also run as a server and collect data from other workstations. It's kind of a data concentrator or more of a SCADA type application, or even run in the cloud and be accessible remotely. Now, a majority of what we're going to talk about in this presentation is going to be remote, and Scott's presentation is going to cover his particular project. But before I hand things over to Scott, I wanted to kind of address this upper middle layer here. We offer 3 different types of thin clients. One runs on Internet Explorer. We call it the Web Thin Client. Another one doesn't require a browser. It goes edge to edge and it's full screen. We call that Secure Viewer. And then there's a third type of thin client that we have called Studio Mobile Access, and this is called SMA or for short. Now I'm going to give a quick demonstration of this, and Scott's for various reasons, in their project, they chose not to use these thin clients, and they went about it a slightly different way. On an iPad, which Studio Mobile Access supports, they're actually using remote desktop and remoting into their local HMI, I believe. So I'll let Scott explain it when he gets there. But I wanted to show you, since we put out the announcements for this webinar talking about iPads, I wanted to talk about our built-in solution that's a little bit different than what Scott's using and show you just how easy it is to do that. So the kind of reviewing that, the different thin client architectures that we have. If you think of this runtime server as the InduSoft Web Studio runtime, let me go back up a slide. In here, this is kind of this local HMI, although it could really be any of these, but what I'm kind of talking about is maybe a local HMI running on a machine. And now I'm going to address these three different thin clients here. So if we have that runtime server and then we have a network, you could have multiple thin clients. And that first one that I talked about, which was the web thin client, uses Internet Explorer. But you can see the screens and the animations and the data. But you see that within the browser window. Now, very similar, with Secure Viewer, you actually see the running application and all the animations, but instead of being in a browser window, you see it full screen edge to edge. And the difference between those two is really for the web thin client with Internet Explorer is to go into a product manager's office, a production manager's office, quality supervisor, that type of thing. Just go to their desktop, open up their Internet Explorer browser, and point to the machine on the floor and see that data. You don't need to install anything, and you can just get that information. Secure Viewer, on the other hand, might be for a large process or a large machine where maybe you want a duplicate display on the other side or at the other end of the machine. Secure Viewer really looks just like the real runtime application. In fact, sometimes you can't even tell the difference. And that's kind of the difference between the two. One would be in an office environment, just point the browser to it. Another one might look like another duplicate HMI. You get one of those each licenses with the runtime license, and you can expand that up to 128. In addition to the one web thin client, the one Secure Viewer, you also get one Studio Mobile Access license. Now here I'm showing that Studio Mobile Access wireless to an iPad, but it doesn't have to be wireless. It could be wired. And Studio Mobile Access supports not only iPads, but Android and Safari on Macs and Internet Explorer 9, 10 and above. It has to be HTML5 compliant browser. The really neat thing about this is that it's not using an app. So we don't have to maintain the app for all those different platforms. You don't have to maintain the app for those different platforms, and your customer doesn't. So it makes it really nice. You just open up the browser, point back to the runtime server, and I'll show you that here in a second. And it makes it really easy to deploy and really easy to maintain as well. So those are the three different types of thin clients. And what Scott's doing is, from a hardware network deployment, it kind of looks like this, but instead of using our SMA thin client, he is using a remote desktop back to his runtime server. So I'll let him describe that in a little bit more detail. I wanted to talk about kind of some best practices and some ideas of why remote and what you can and should do. Really what this is promoting is operator efficiency. You might save that operator or that maintenance person a few steps every time that they need to go back to the panel, or it could be even a few miles or kilometers away. In the case of a wind turbine farm or a remote pumping station, it might be hours to get to the facility. I dealt with one customer one time that was on a mountain, and it was a 3-hour drive each way. So really remotely is saving operator drive time. One of the things you should think about is really optimizing for any size. Keep in mind that scaling, when we're talking about a remote device, it might not be a tablet only. It might be a phone. It might be a tablet. It might be a desktop. So keep in mind that scaling is going to happen. That pinch and zoom or or pinch to zoom, the multi-touch capabilities is really going to come in mind here and come in play, and keep that in mind. Also, it's a suggestion to use text in addition to color for status. Maybe show the word on or the word automatic, because it turns out that about 10% of men are colorblind, and changing colors is maybe not the best way to show status. Also throw a word on there to help that be a little bit more visible. So that's an idea too. Use large, clear fonts. Consider all the possible users and future devices. If you think about what might happen in the future, your project's going to probably be deployed for longer than the current types of devices are going to be around. We've had a real, nice new devices that have come out in the last 3 or 4 years that nobody ever thought possible. Everybody always wished for. So now think about what you're wishing for, and maybe in 3 or 4 or 5 years they'll be around there. So try to think about the different users that are going to be using this and what they're going to need with fonts and sizes and things of that nature. Reduce screen clutter. Those 3D animated shapes really help you get the machine running if it's stopped, or is it just in the way and maybe distracting you from where the real problem is. A big trend that we've seen recently is customers developing projects almost in grayscale, almost black and white, with only color being used and animation being used when there's a problem or an issue, something that has to be noticed. It helps notice those issues quicker, find and solve the problem faster. So if it might not look as good, but it's not supposed to look good if it solves a problem. It still can look good. I shouldn't say that, but keep in mind that it doesn't have to be 3D shaded, shadowed graphics. Something else you might want to consider is an overall process view, a high-level overall diagram, and allow zooming into a particular machine or a particular section of your process. So that's something you can consider as well. Before I hand it over to Scott, I'm going to try to demonstrate this. This is the part that didn't go so well this morning. Before I actually start over on this project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this and see if I can't demonstrate it running before I start it over and show you how I did this. So here's a project that I made with just a slider and a bar graph. So you should be able to see that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Chrome browser, and I'm going to point it at my IP address and then put a /MA at the end of this. And what this will do is challenge me for security. Since I don't have any security on this particular system, just click OK. And there's a couple of different views that I can get of this. I can get tags or process values. So here you can see that I'm actually showing that value. I can either grab the needle and change the value, or I can type it in down here. And so let's set this at 88, and I'll write that or commit that, and then you should have seen that over here on the project. So now that I've proven that that works, let me see if I can actually do it and show you how quick it is here. So let's go back into the InduSoft Web Studio development environment, and I'm going to create a brand new project, and I'll just call this project SMA, and we're going to make it the local interface, 1500 tags. I'm really only using one tag, but it's going to create that blank application there, and I'll create a screen real quick. And when this comes up here, we'll create a screen, and I'm not sure what's going on here. Usually that goes back a little quicker. So I'll insert a screen, and then on this I'll put a rectangle, and I will turn this into bar graph by applying the bar graph animation, and I'll create a new tag called temperature. This tag will be an integer type tag. Now that I have that in the system, what I'm also going to do is because I don't have a PLC connected, I'm just going to simulate this by using a slider, and we'll grab slider 1 from the library here, place that on the screen, and then I'll also tie that to the tag called temperature. So for those of you who use InduSoft, you should know and understand that's a pretty typical thing and a way to develop, and fairly easy. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to call this screen main. And once that's done, I'm going to right-click on the screen and set that as the startup. So that should start up. And before I proceed, just going to make sure that that all works. And that does. Okay, that's good news. That's a good step. And now that I have that screen, what I'm going to do is take this step here and then publish my screens as HTML. And where I did that was here under the file icon, publish, save all as HTML. And that will save those screen files as HTML. Then the next thing that I will do is go in here to the Thin clients and right-click on Mobile Access and click Open. Now, when I demonstrated that a few minutes ago, what I had done before the webinar started is I had come in here and I put that tag name for temperature in this area. Now, I could label this. If not, it'll take the tag name. I'm going to say I want to allow that to be written to. And the gauge that or the widget that I'm going to use, I have circular gauge, semicircular, horizontal switch, and text box. I'm going to use the circular gauge here. And then the other thing that I did is came down here. Because I have my screens published, I can now pull this from here. And there's my main screen. And that's going to show up in a slightly different area. So I'm going to have really two things to show you, that gauge and then a screen here. So let's save this. And now I should be able to stop this project, kick it back off again, and now I can see this screen running here. This is the real InduSoft Web Studio runtime. I'm now going to open up my browser again and put in my IP address of my laptop, and I think I hid the browser here, or it's still loading. Let's see, where did it go here? There it is, it's behind. So wait for that to come up here. There we go. And then I'll put my IP address in here. And again, that /MA. And now I should be able to enter the security. If there is any, I'll just click on the little green circle when it pops up. Any second now. Maybe that's, I don't think I got a new IP address in that short amount of time. Try to refresh this here. A question came in, can the IP address be dynamic? Usually the IP addresses in an industrial environment are set to static. The IP address in this case could be dynamic. You just have to know what it is. In fact, let me show you how you know what it is. In the InduSoft Web Studio, there's a script command called get IP, and so that's my IP address. But typically, you're going to find that most industrial systems are set to static IP addresses. Let me try this one more time. All right, we get the Chrome browser coming up here. We'll put the IP address in /MA, and we'll see if this challenges me for security here. There we go. There's the mobile access. And now the one thing that I did was set up the process value so I would have a circular gauge. So there's my circular gauge. Since I set it up to allow to be written to, I can click on it. I can change the value here. Again, I can move the needle or type in the value. And what happens when I write this, it writes back to the value here. In addition to this type of display, you can also see screens. And what I'm going to do is open up that screen, so I should see something that looks very similar, or just like this. And notice it's a little bit smaller here, and for whatever reason my graphics aren't updating here. And I guess I'm kind of glad that I showed this before I switched, because I don't know what WebEx does to this, and we're going to have to check this out. But something seems to happen when I go into WebEx with this. So maybe it needs to be zoomed in. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, that's how that works, and that little handle isn't there. Let's see if I can get the screen to update anyway. Yeah, the values update, but not sure why the graphic isn't there. We'll have to take a look at that. But so that's pretty easy to do. And again, Scott's doing something a little bit different, and I'll let him show what he's doing on that. And let's see, Scott, I'm going to go ahead and take you off of mute. Scott, you there?
I am here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, and hopefully we can offer a couple of ideas for what we're doing here in the car wash industry. Excuse me. I've been involved, kind of started out 35 years ago in electrical contracting and got involved with car washing shortly after that, doing controls and things. And then in about the year 2000, started a company called Custom Control Specialists. And we're located here in Akron, Ohio. But we started that company in response to a need in the industry for specialty controls, things that the normal equipment manufacturers either didn't do or didn't want to do. And we have a little bit of competition. It's kind of a niche business, but we have some competition, and quite often they don't necessarily want to get involved in the specialty things. So we did, and we still do, and that's kind of where our little niche resides. About 5 years ago then, Custom Control Specialists joined up with ProTech Systems Group, and ProTech is also here in Akron, and they are and have been for better than 26, 27 years a systems integrator to the water and wastewater industry, and they've been a user of InduSoft products for many years in that industry, mostly as SCADA systems. Now, Custom Control Specialists, we had a shop. ProTech also did, where we build our control panels. We're a UL 508A shop. We we operate primarily as an OEM of control systems, again, for the car wash industry. We sell to manufacturers and distributors. We don't sell, except in rare exceptions, we sell to the individual car wash operator. We sell to manufacturers and distributors as an OEM. And the Guardian logo that you see on these products is our brand. That's how we sell our products. But also, we will brand them to third-party equipment manufacturers, and you'll see a couple of those logos on some slides that we have. And those or that particular company, Tommy Car Wash Equipment, is a customer of ours, and products that go out of here for their sites go out with their brand. But the technology is basically the same. And we've been blessed to have installations across the country in almost every state in the U.S., from Maine to Hawaii, and then Canada, Mexico, and Europe, Asia, and Australia. So we've been able to ship worldwide with our products. Again, our premier product line is the Guardian Wash Command. That's a PLC-based automated tunnel car wash controller. We believe pretty strongly in a PLC-based controller rather than a PC-based controller, primarily for the industrial hardiness of it and its ability to withstand an industrial environment, but then also for things like not having to rely on a hard drive and some other limitations that a PC might have. One of our challenges in building an OEM control solution for a variety of automated tunnel car washes to a variety of equipment manufacturers is that almost every location is laid out differently with different types of equipment, different quantities, laid out in different ways. The car wash industry is pretty fragmented and is usually owned and operated by, I should say, like mom and pop type installations or locations with maybe one or two or three locations in each area. So we have to have a solution that will be configurable in the field to whatever setup might happen there and whatever chemicals they may be applying, whatever equipment they may have. More often than not, we're usually involved in a cloth system, but quite often we get involved in a totally touchless where it's all high-pressure water and then solutions. So it's all over the board, different conveyor systems, all this type of thing. And the reason for the complexity in our product is the fact that these all have to be field configurable by personnel of varying technical skills. We might have a equipment installer who is somewhat new to the particular equipment he's installing and maybe not a whole lot of experience, or an electrician who doesn't really never even dealt with a car wash before. So these all have to be field adjustable by those, and they can do that with our interfaces and with the iPad interface also. The retail car wash is a very competitive market, and all the car washes, if you've been to one, you have one in your area, you probably notice differences between all of them. They're all basically competing for the spare change in your pocket. Obviously, automated car washing is a luxury, and so discretionary income comes much into play. Demographics are huge in the car wash industry. As with any retail store or facility, location. That's what it's all about. So we also have, you've probably noticed, large tunnels and small tunnels, and the reason for that is the amount of equipment that is in the car wash is determined by the demographics of the location, things like traffic count, obviously size of the lot, but also the number of rooftops in the area and what local income might be and that type of thing. And so the length of the car wash and the amount of equipment that goes into it factor in to the volume that car wash can produce. It has no bearing whatsoever on the quality of the wash. Hopefully you get just as clean a car going through a shorter tunnel as you do a longer one. But the guy with the longer tunnel can produce more cars at a higher volume. So that's another factor in our design systems. We have controllers that will operate a car wash that will only wash 30 or 40 cars an hour, and others that will wash in excess of 150 cars an hour. In fact, we have, I think the busiest location that we've installed equipment in has done nearly 2,500 cars in one 14-hour day. So volume is another, volume and speed is another variable that really varies amongst locations. But they all have to compete, and they all have to provide a pleasant experience for the car wash customer. And so our objective is to provide some additional efficiencies to help them do that. Obviously, the car wash equipment that we provide is a back room kind of a thing. If everything's working correctly, nobody really knows it's there. But hopefully, we want to provide them a more efficient way to run their equipment. Many of the companies that also provide controllers in our industry are PC based. As I said earlier, ours are PLC based. But in any case, setup and monitoring without remote capabilities is limited to walking back to a PC station, walking back to a touchscreen HMI mounted on a control panel, things like that. Like Scott said earlier, sometimes just not having to walk to something, whether it's measured in feet or miles, can save a tremendous amount of time. Again, the Guardian Wash Command System is a PLC-based controller, but this is a picture here of a typical installation with a touchscreen HMI. This is not a remote, and this is just a HMI screen. It's not running InduSoft. It's actually a Magella screen there, and people using that screen, as great as it is, have to come back to this particular point. So walking around or yelling to your buddy or using intercoms or whatever, not really the best way to do it with regard to efficiencies. So we were looking for a solution that allowed the flexibility of remote devices and remote connectivities without expensive equipment. And tablets, smartphones, iPads, Android devices, all of these have become part of everyday life. Everybody uses them. Everybody has them. The learning curve is low because they know how to use the device that they have. They've had it maybe for a little while, or they've got one like it, and so putting our systems on those kind of devices and putting it in their hands, I'm giving them a tool they already pretty much know how to use from a hardware standpoint. All they have to learn to do is a little bit on our software. Also, replacement cost is much less because they can run down to the local Best Buy store and get a replacement iPad or smartphone or Android device, whatever they want to use, for a fraction of the cost of replacing a traditional touchscreen HMI because somebody ran a screwdriver through it or smashed it or poured water on it or something like that. So InduSoft Web Studio, chosen for a couple of reasons. One at the top of the list there was our familiarity with the product, and that being our involvement with ProTech. The guys here have used InduSoft for a number of years. There's a proven record, a proven level of support. We know how to program it. We know how to do it. And so that was a big plus. Mainly in the water wastewater industry is the SCADA system. A little bit different than the OEM market, but still a lot of carryover there. We liked the alarming features and management capabilities in the InduSoft product, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, some of the alarming and fault management things that we do in the Guardian system. And then pricing. I mean, pricing always is a factor. And excuse me, if we're trying to fit a product within a budget, we compete just like everybody else does in a market, and so we've got to come up with solutions that are price competitive. And InduSoft Web Studio allows us to do that. From a hardware standpoint, we've loaded up InduSoft on a diskless, fanless PC. We use solid-state drives on a Windows 7 operating system. Typically, that little unit will be mounted inside one of our control panels. Doesn't have to be. It can be mounted somewhere else within our network. We set up, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but we set up a little Ethernet TCP/IP network that's unique to our control there with fixed addressing. And the picture here that you see is of a control console at a car wash, and you'll see the iPad right down here mounted mounted on this control panel next to some start-stop buttons and some other screens. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but this iPad is in a frame that allows it to be magnetically attached to an inductive charger. So as it's sitting there right now, it's magnetically attached, and it's also charging the iPad. Excuse me, sorry. Communication, we're talking to a M340 pack controller or PLC controller, and again over an Ethernet TCP IP network. We'll set up our own little Wi-Fi zone, and we happen to use a Ubiquiti Pico station here, a little Wi-Fi radio. It's a PoE powered unit. This little guy has done a tremendous job. You figure a car wash is full of steel and piping and conduit and wires and everything, but this guy squirts out a signal that does very well, and we've been very pleased with it in the car wash environment. This is the frame I was talking about earlier. We happen to use this is a company called Launchport, and basically, of course, this is the front of the iPad as it sits in the frame. This is the back of the frame that the iPad sits in, and then there's two types of mountings. You can have a desktop mounting like what we have here, nice little neat desktop mounting, and this black circle here is a magnet, but as the iPad sits on that, it is being inductively charged. This unit here in the middle is a panel mount or wall mount unit, the same design, magnetic and also inductively charging. So it gives a way, or it gives a place for the iPad to live, as it were, and then it could be up and running the screens, run the iPad, and still be charging. So we found that works very well. It's actually, we have kits that we sell this entire system in, and these screens and chargers are an upcharge, but we found them to be very popular. And we like the fact that this panel mount can actually go on the front of a motor control panel if necessary, or we got a picture of it mounted somewhere else. Let's see. Yes, here at this picture. This is a chemical application station for the Tommy Equipment company, their manufacturer. As you can see, here we have a panel-mounted inductive charger sitting there, and then the iPad can live right there with it. The electrical connections are behind that panel, and it's inductively charging the iPad. Software, I won't talk too much about it because obviously it's InduSoft. Scott touched earlier on some other ideas, but we've been able to shoehorn all of our functionality here into a 1500 tag license. Again, cost was a consideration for this program, so there's functionality in the InduSoft program that we can't bring out because we're limited to our 1500 tag license because of price. But still, we've got a lot of basic functionality built into it, and we're happy with the way it's working. We have it configured to start up and run as a service. And then, like was mentioned earlier, we just put a little Microsoft remote desktop program on the iPad smartphone, works on Android devices also, and we will remote back to the desktop in that little PC, the diskless, fanless PC that we showed earlier via the Wi-Fi system. Then this is another one of our main screens, and we can have multiple devices, multiple iPads, iPad and a smartphone, or maybe even somebody with a desktop office PC can remote back and also talk to our InduSoft program at the same time. And we'll talk a little bit more about this screen here later. But this is a example of our main startup screen. Gives access to all the other menus. Scott talked earlier about colors. You know, we got colors here, but we've got a black background, bold colors for our bottom bar and the blue buttons. This thing has to pop when you're out working. There may be sunshine or whatever. It needs to stand out and be easily readable, and really that's what we're looking for. And we can, of course, we've got security. We can log in users, give them multiple access levels. Things like this name of the wash down here are all dynamically changeable at the site. This is the tunnel status screen. This would be the screen that if the car wash is running, you might just have up and be looking at while the process is happening. Over on the right-hand side, some key indicators. These are just pilot lights that are going to tell me that the conveyor is running. The pulse and the gate are a couple of key sensors in the car wash tunnel, along with a few other things. If somebody pushes the stop button, this light turns red right here to give that an indication. We have an anti-collision sensor at the exit of the wash. That turns red if that goes off. On this side, on the left side, we give some just up-to-date stats over what's happening. Ready to wash is cars that are lined up, ready to come into the wash. How many cars I did this hour, last hour, total for the day, conveyor speed, all these kind of things, along with buttons to go to other areas of the program. This is a screen that we're probably most proud of than anything. There is a tremendous amount of scripting behind it. But if you've been to a car wash, an automatic tunnel wash, cars will go through some sort of a sales area and then kind of line up at the front. And that's what we call this little line up here. And as cars line up, they'll stack. We got 3 cars in the stack. This will handle up to 10 ahead of the wash. And then they drop off as the car goes into the tunnel. But we can manipulate that wash line. Let's say somebody has paid for a wash and they're up there, they're in line, and oh my gosh, we forgot we got a ski rack on and we got to take that off. Well, the operator can come to this screen, touch on that car, pull it out and put it in reserve. That's what this little button's for. And it more or less like set it off to the side and allow that customer to get out of line, take care of what they got to take care of, and then insert them back in. In the meantime, they can add washes in, take washes out, basically full control of everything leading up to the tunnel at this one screen. And obviously it's proprietary, but there's just a ton of work in the InduSoft. We've really been happy with the way the InduSoft product has handled this, because this has to obviously be accurate, but it has to happen fast. It has to click right along, and it does do that. Excuse me. In addition to normal car wash functions, we can handle other things like lighting, whether it be lot lighting or tunnel lighting, and this is just a way to handle that. Set it up on a 24/7 clock, as it were, and of course we got buttons here to turn things, put it in auto or off or a manual position. Pick the days of the week that we want it to operate on, start times, stop times, that type of thing. Just an example of some of the things we're doing. The various outputs in the car wash, as we define them, these are the motors and solenoids and chemical pumps and chemical applications and all the various things that happen in the wash. Well, like I said earlier, they always happen, or they're always installed in different locations at every wash. So everybody's got a different configuration and different spacing and that type of thing. So the descriptions here, right down here in the center, are all dynamically changing. All the operator has to do is touch on one of them. A little keypad pops up. He can put in the description he wants. Auto off and manual, typical buttons, but turn things off and on. Again, green light's going to tell us that the option's happening. And then this is where we'll set up a function with start and stop parameters and various things that might happen within the car wash. Also, what we do is monitor every input signal that comes into the car wash. We got several screens laid out to monitor the status of those inputs, and we can also give a description. These are also dynamically changeable in the field, so the operator can name them whatever he wants them to be. And this is really an invaluable tool if you're diagnosing a problem, and you may not have the most skilled electrician on site, and you can go to this screen and just say, well, hey, this particular sensor should be on, but I got a red light, so I'm not getting an input. So go check wiring here or there or whatever. So this is as simple as it may seem. It's been found to be a big time saver. In addition to a typical motor starter being used in the car wash, a number of frequency drives are usually employed in a couple applications, often for dryer motors, for pumps, for conveyors, that type of thing. And so this is a screen we have set up for a variety of parameters to control a dryer frequency drive in the car wash. And in addition to configuring the function of that frequency drive, we also monitor it. So we're pulling out a couple of key parameters like line voltage, the output frequency, status, fault status, and then some drive parameters here. So we're talking directly to the drive, and again, this is an aid in monitoring and maintenance and keeping the system running. This is just an indication, just a slide indicating, our little setup menu here, but just kind of how we have things laid up, and just push buttons. If you've been through a wash, you come up to a sales area and you pick up package, and this is usually some sort of a combination of services that the car wash can provide with a variety of different pricing. But again, it's all over the board as to what that operator may want, and he may want to change it. And so it has to be easily done in the field right from this screen without having to do any, we don't want to have to hook up a laptop and do programming. We want to be able to just touch things and add services or take them away and build those wash packages very easily and very quickly from our interface. And that's what this screen allows us to do. From a standpoint of reporting, we don't get very heavy into that with this particular product, and the reason we don't is because of our 1,500 tag limit, and the reason for that, of course, is price. So in the future, we look to offer probably some more expanded options, and of course, the price will reflect that. But for right now, to keep the price down where we want, we're just giving simple simple counts and things that are happening today. We've got a column there for what happened yesterday. But right now we don't get too far into reporting. Trending, that type of thing, that's something that we have on the drawing board for some future enhancements. But we're right as of right now, because of a pretty strict price point, keep it pretty simple. Spoke earlier about alarms, and this is one of the reasons that we like the InduSoft product. Alarming is very important to us, and of course it's important to the car wash operator. But it's always been our philosophy at Custom Control to design and build products that are proactive from a standpoint of alarming. I want the machine to come up and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I got a problem over here, and maybe provide some significant information that will help the operator diagnose and solve that problem, rather than reactive, waiting till we notice that things are broke down. So, we've got alarms, alarm banners, and things in there to help them to do that. These are safety sensors that we monitor within the wash. Basically, what I'm showing you here is some just some water and oil sensors that are protecting pumps. And so this is how we configure them: low and high. Do I want it? Which way do I want it to alarm? All these descriptions again are dynamically changeable in the field. You can type in, whatever the operator wants to call them. And with that, we come to the end of what I had to show. Hopefully, maybe you've learned a couple things and you've enjoyed what we brought. And I sure thank everybody for attending. My contact information is here if anybody's interested. And so, Scott, are you still there?
Scott, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Real informative. I think I've been through this now with you 3 times, and I learned something new every time. So I guess it's beneficial for me even attending the webinar. So thank you. Hopefully our customers did too. We really appreciate you doing that, Scott, and we appreciate everybody joining. We're going to open it up now for questions. And while we're waiting on questions to come in, if there are any, so far there aren't any. Scott, one of the things that I noticed this morning, and I don't know if you actually touched on it in your presentation, I was slightly distracted, but I noticed that you guys keep track of the number of different types of packages that people go through the car wash with. And that can be used to report back to your customer or help them understand how many of each package so that they can do measurements on what marketing programs are helping or what signage out front helps, things of that nature. Care to comment on that?
That's from a marketing standpoint, very important. Marketing is a big part of the car wash industry. But also reconciling money at the end of the day, that type of thing, because each of those packages are going to generate their own revenue. But yeah, very much so. I mean, like we said earlier, it's retail. It's a retail business. It's competing for discretionary income, and it's very, very much an impulse business. It's an impulse buy. A guy's driving down the road. Bird crap on the windshield. Oops, there's a car wash. I'm going to drive in and get it washed here real quick. So that's the world that they live in, and that's what we're trying to help them do.
Sure. Question came in. How do you find the reliability of the iPads in your environment, the car wash environment?
Well, so far, so good. We probably got somewhere around 15 that are actually out in the field right now working. I've been very pleased with the reliability of the iPad itself. Most operators they put those inductive chargers either in the office or even back in an equipment room. So that's where the little iPad lives. The sleeve that we put them in is not waterproof, so they can't obviously go out in the water with them. But I know of several equipment installers that will crawl up on top of the equipment, and when they're doing their final checks and things like that, and that iPad's up there with them. And so, the reliability from that standpoint has been very good. Been pleased with it.
Good. And overall reception for your customers?
Oh, it's been well received. Of course, we put this in new systems that are going out, but I've had a number of customers who have purchased systems from us in the last couple of years, and they want to upgrade, and so we put together a little retrofit kit where they can keep the touchscreen that they have, but add this onto it, and that's went out too, and that's been very successful. So lots of good feedback. Everybody likes it. It's just we keep saying iPad. It's not limited to that. It can be an Android system too, but it's a product that everybody has, or most everybody has something like that, and they're very used to it. They use it every day. So when we can put this platform on a product that they probably have in their briefcase or at their hip or whatever, it's easy for them to use.
Yeah, the familiarity is certainly there. That's for sure. Again, we're opening up to questions. Let's see. A question came in. How do you load the remote desktop app onto the iPad? How do you guys do it?
How do we do it? It's very, very simple. From the iPad. It's in the in the app section. It's free, and we load it up, configure it with IP addresses. We use we use a static IP address format, so the addressing is all the same, wash to wash. So it's easy for us to do that. I mean, it's a couple minutes. Boom, you're done.
Yeah,
so,
I think you said you use the Microsoft one.
Yes, Microsoft Remote Desktop. Yes.
Yeah, there's several different remote desktop clients that are out there. We recently did a project for a system that was loading trucks, and the truck drivers could actually view remote stuff. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
Do you you mentioned it could be used for other devices other than just iPads? Are you guys only deploying iPads, or do you see requests for Android devices?
I haven't seen requests. Nobody's come to me and said, "Hey, can you provide a Android device or whatever?" Nobody's come to me specifically for that.
Okay.
But we're happy to do that if that's the case. The sleeves and inductive chargers that we show there, those happen to only be available for an iPad, but that's not a must. You can have your own device, have your own charger. So. Yeah.
I actually have a inductive charger in the back of my cell phone. It was just a device that I slipped in and took the cover off, slipped in there, and then put the cover back on. And it doesn't have the magnetic mount, but it works in exactly the same way for my Android phone. So, So again, if you have a question, please feel free to put that into the chat panel or the Q&A panel. While we're looking for other questions, if you have any, I'd like to point out that we have additional resources. And again, these slides and the recording of this video are going to be posted on our website in just a couple of days. We have a couple of good articles on remote desktop and how, not specifically about how Scott implemented that, but the concept and the idea of that. Mobile devices in general, how InduSoft is meeting those challenges, and how to configure the SMA client, a really good webinar there. Article on the blog. And then we have our training video on how to enable mobile access, but you just saw me do that at the beginning of this presentation. So Scott, we'd really like to thank you again. And Scott, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and put your contact information back up. I'm going to leave the InduSoft contact information up while I switch back over to you. Scott, do you have your slides still handy there? All right, so if you need to contact custom control specialists and you want to hire these guys to do your car wash or whatever circumstance may be, there's Scott's contact information. So give you a little bit of extra free press there, Scott.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And let's see, I don't see any more questions. Yep, so that's it for questions, and I think we're right about at our time limit. So I'd like to thank Scott again for joining us. We really appreciate it, and I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, and we really hope you got something out of this and got some better understanding of how to do some mobile and some iPad type stuff. And Scott, again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody for being part of this.
Sure. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end it. So everybody have a great day, great evening, great rest of your day, wherever you're at. And thank you very much.
Thank you.